And now we'll hear a different kind of trade secret from Simon Youngleson. He's an architect and urban designer who has worked in South Africa, New Zealand, and now lives and works out of Perth. He not only designs homes for individual clients, but he also works with large land developers to create the built form vision for entire coastal communities. Now, firstly, Simon, there are some really bad places. I mean, have some coastal areas just been ruined?
Yes, I really think they have been. A lot of Western Australia, the city is moving in both directions, both north and south. And what's happening, unfortunately, is that the houses of our suburbs are actually moving up and down the coastline. And we have some terrible examples of the type of housing that's actually being built there.
That's an embarrassment, that one.
It is, isn't it?
You have to say that.
Totally inappropriate, with no real attachment or feeling that relates at all to the coastline. And there is many examples of the same house we've just seen. So it goes from bad to worse. And unfortunately, that wonderful coastline that we have will lose its identity, its very sensitive nature. This is just a subdivision that you can see right along the edge of the coastline where all the vegetation has been bulldozed and flattened.
And you know that it's going to be filled with, little brick boxes, I suppose. But I mean, since a community is a whole lot bigger than an individual house, where do you start when you first go in to plan a coastal community?
Well, what we think is that a coastal community actually relates to the area in which it exists. So for us, it's very important for us to actually go and start to discover the place. We go down there and we take our cameras and we actually invest time down there and actually start to really begin. We photograph the soil colour, we photograph the vegetation, the skies, the houses, the activities and the ideas that people have put into that landscape.
Let's have a look at one of those examples, because Preston Beach is an example where you've taken that approach. Can you talk us through some of the materials that you've produced for that development, Simon?
Preston Beach was a small existing community, and it is actually a transient community, and it's got some wonderful little houses between a lot of very bad houses. So what we've done here is we actually focus on the houses that we think are representative of the place. We've got some undulating dune sort of land, so we actually had to develop on there, and we've looked at the shacks and the types of buildings, the lightweight buildings that actually occur there. The interesting thing about Preston Beach is that it's going to be the proposal is for it to become a much larger community. So it's very important for us to look at what the village would look like as well as the houses surrounding the village itself. We do take ideas from other places in the world where we can't find local examples.
Now you talk about a transect approach. Can you explain that to us? What does that mean?
The transect approach in planning is basically says that in any village there are various types and forms of housing. So you go from the centre of the community where the shops are likely to occur and where there's some community activity to the edges and the fringes of that community. And there you'll get single houses on more undulating land where it's less likely to actually have the concentration of community. And within that transect plan, there's a variety of housing types that actually are developed along that plan.
Okay, and so what about the guidelines, the design guidelines? Do people really accept that, as you use for Preston? Are they happy with it?
I think that the community of Preston Beach will be very happy to see design guidelines, but the actual purchasers, in a sense, would obviously be wary of design guidelines. And it's our job really to actually involve them in the process and understanding of the nature of the reasons for the guidelines to exist. And that's what we do in terms of this visual presentation, is actually to try and transform people's thinking and actually really encourage them to get involved and build a community.
Okay, so let's look at another example. This is the project at North Head. What have you done here to capture the concept of what you're talking about?
Well, North Head has actually got no houses on it, and it's a wild piece of land with a wild nature. And obviously there we would really like to create a transient community, which is really about holidaying in a way that is very exciting. These are some of the temporary shacks that have occurred there in the past, and these are other pictures of where people have actually taken them and made them into more contemporary style of houses. This is sort of developing, looking more at the actual village character of the houses. So we've gone from very lightweight in the centre to more formalised in the beginning. Human scale and proportion, we think, is an extremely important part of any development, that the houses must be intimate and they must be small, especially in a transient environment.
All right. And we've got some examples from the Excelsa project. This was a New Zealand project, I believe, Simon. Tell us a little about this one.
Well, it just shows how different places are, and I think that what these couple of slides demonstrate is just the character that one can find in all different places. New Zealand's about light and dark, it's about deep shadows, and it's about bright colours as well, which are not shown here, but it's also about the very lightweight materials and it's about place, and that's really what we're trying to interpret.
Right, thanks, Simon.